You know, when you hear that thing, Yankees win, Yankees I sound unhinged. So we have a very good show for you today with the NFL season just beginning. Jets and Giants will get at it on Sunday, tomorrow. So we're going to do mostly football today. Two really great guests lined up for this program. Before I begin, let's give some credit. Vincent Lospinuso and Jonas Jackson are producing and engineering their little hearts out. And the executive producer, whoa, heavy guy, whoa, is Rich Rottobali. And you have me here, and we're going to have a great show. I love doing the show. It's about the easiest, most wonderful thing that I've ever done. And as I've mentioned, I have now been on the air 65 years. 65 and counting. Am I a lucky guy? I've been gainfully employed for 65 years plus. So we have a couple of great guests coming up. You know, one thing I wanted to mention, I wonder, are you, I read the newspapers. I listen to radio. I watch television. I'm not an internet guy. I don't have the equipment to get on the internet, not bright enough. But I love predictions. I love when they tear the teams apart. So I'm going to get to a point. Get to your point, John, would you? I wonder if you think, like I do, of the tremendous hype about the Jets and Giants who have been terrible for so long, but hope springs eternal. The Giants with Russell Wilson running their offense and Jackson Dart about to take over, and Abdul Carter going to wreak havoc on other teams' offenses. And the Jets, their new quarterback, who comes from the Bears and the Steelers, and Fields has great legs, and now they're wondering how will he throw the ball because he has not had great success. Anyway, what's my point? Here, the writers bought the hype. Now, I was looking in the newspapers about predictions. You know, there was one newspaper I read. There were 8 people who predicted. All 8 voted for the Giants in their game against Washington on Sunday. So you know what I thought? I thought they've grabbed the hype. They believed the hype. They introduced it, and they believed it. So that's a little bit about hype and about the season. The Mets won a fantastic game last night, if you didn't see it. They're up by 1 run in the 9th inning. There's a base hit and 2 walks. The bases are loaded and no one out, and they don't score. The Reds, allegedly battling for a playoff spot, don't score with the bases loaded, no one out. You want to know why? It all goes back to the launch angle. The worst thing ever to happen in baseball. So instead of choking up and making contact and putting the ball in play, don't forget the infield is way up when you have the tying run at third and there's no one out. Even if you had a pop fly, it drops in because the infield is up anyway. Credit Diaz, he struck out 2 and got the other on a close play at first, but he was out. You know, the old half step, and the Mets did win the game. The Yankees are winning 2-1. Their game has been stopped in the 6th inning because of the rainstorm. The Yankees have played very badly against Toronto and Boston. So if their year doesn't end happily, that's the reason, how badly they played against the 2 teams in their division they have to beat, the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. What are the Yankees doing well? Hitting home runs, baby. They lead the major leagues in runs scored. So when they don't hit like last night, you can't blame them. They lead the major leagues in runs scored. What else do you want offensively? They pay off in runs, and they lead in runs scored. And as far as home runs are concerned, when Bellinger hits another and Chisholm hits another, I think that's what it is, they'll have 4 guys over 30 home runs. Of course, Judge is in the 40s. And then, overall, they have 10 guys who have 20 or more home runs. Well, they need one more from Volpe, one more from Stanton, who's barely played, and they'll have more than 10 guys hitting more than 20 home runs. Obviously, it makes you think, well, John, what about their pitching? What about their base running? What about their defense? Those have all contributed to hold the Yankees down this year. Okay, we're about ready to go. We're at 77 WABC. We're going to, take care of a couple of spots. Come back, and our first guest is a great football writer. You'll hear from him in just a moment. Where? 77 WABC. As you would expect, I am an inordinate sports fan. Inordinate means a lot every single day of my life. I love football, basketball, baseball, and hockey. And I read everything, listen to everything. Well, one of the pleasures I get is during the football season, reading the football of the Jets and the Giants. The Jets beat writer for the New York Post is Brian Costello, and he is on top of everything, and I hope you're going to hear it right now. Hello, Brian. How you doing?
I'm good, John. How are you?
Very good. Very good. I think the Yankee game is going to begin again. I think it stopped raining. And we know that the Jets will be playing tomorrow. And I talked about the hype. And do we believe the hype? You have to admit, Brian, that the stories on the Jets and Giants are a little better for teams that haven't gone anywhere in all these years. Give us some thoughts about the Jets.
Yeah, I think there's, tempered excitement, I'd say, John. I've been cautiously optimistic. I think the Jets fans are excited about Aaron Glenn. He obviously was a hot coaching candidate. He interviewed with almost everyone who had an opening, and he's homegrown, so to speak, right? He's a 1994 first-round draft pick of the Jets, played here for a long time, was a good player for a long time for the Jets. So I think that's exciting. He's not just another coordinator coming here as a head coach. So I think people are excited about that. And I think, there's the expectations are not as high as they were the last 2 years with Aaron Rodgers here. But I think that could be a good thing. And I think Jets fans are kind of enjoying that they're a little more flying under the radar than these last couple of years. There's been no hard knocks. There hasn't been a lot of chatter about the Jets nationally. They've just kind of gone about their business. So I think fans are excited about what could happen this year without having, I don't think they have unrealistic expectations about the team.
Well, I don't blame fans, because I'm certainly one of them, of being optimistic before the season begins. That's about Aaron Rodgers. Tell us some of the thoughts about covering him. I thought one of the funniest things was, I think you'll remember this, Brian, when Rodgers said, look, the Jets have to stop listening to the outside noise. But Brian, the outside noise was Rodgers.
Yes. Yeah, well, he's quite an enigma, John, I would say. I enjoyed covering him because he was interesting, and that's all you want as a reporter, is you want interesting, and he was that. He gave us a lot to write about, and he was very gracious with his time, and he answered questions thoughtfully. He did not speak in cliches, which I appreciated, but there was a lot that came with Aaron Rodgers, and he was unlike any player I've covered. Actually, the closest, John, I would say, is back when I was backing up George King at the Yankees when the other A-Rod was playing, right? And it always seemed like Alex was in the middle of some sort of controversy or another, right? And it's similar with this A-Rod. And whether it was that he went to Egypt instead of going to minicamp, or that he was rumored to be a vice presidential candidate with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., there was always kind of something swirling around Aaron Rodgers. But overall, I enjoyed the experience. I had a lot of fun covering him.
Well, I guess the question is, it's a very tough one to answer. But what do you expect from Rodgers? He'll be starting at quarterback tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect from Rodgers. I don't know if anyone really knows.
Me either.
He just signed with he's signed with the Steelers in June. So he hasn't had a whole off season with them. He's another year removed from his Achilles injury, so he should be healthier and able to move a little bit better than he was last year with the Jets. And I'm sure he's going to be motivated, John. He did not like the way things went down with the Jets this offseason, where Aaron Glenn kind of brought him here from California and spends about 15 minutes telling them to get out, and didn't really. He felt his words were he didn't show ample respect. So I think he's going to be motivated for this game. I just don't know completely what to expect. He hasn't really played well, John, in season opening games the last few years. If you go back last year, he didn't really play well against San Francisco, and then forget about the year he got hurt. But the 2 previous years in Green Bay, he had some bad openers. So he's kind of started slow as he's gotten older in his career. He didn't play in the preseason at all this year. So yeah, we haven't seen him. I think it could be a little slow go for him tomorrow. On the other hand, like I said, he's going to be motivated. So it wouldn't shock me either if he came out and had a good game. I'm not saying great game, but it wouldn't surprise me if he had some success tomorrow, just because he's going to have a big chip on his shoulder.
Well, you mentioned it. He has an enormous chip on his shoulder. I read something, and I felt the same way. I once did this in my career. Some team wanted me to fly and meet with the owners, and I had a good job, and so I did it it worked out very well. I went to Philadelphia, and I paid, and that's what got me. And Roger said, and I'm with him, he flew from California to New York to go to this meeting with Aaron Glenn, and Darren, how do you pronounce his name? Muge? Muji. Well, anyway, he had a meeting with the coach GM. He paid for the flight. He got there, and they said, "Thank you. We don't want you here anymore." So one thing I would say, Brian, he is going to try, but the other team's going to try too. So we'll see what he does.
Yeah, I think, John, the interesting part is going to be what the Jets' defense does against Aaron Rodgers, and I think we'll see how good this defense could be, because if the Jets are going to have any success this season, the formula is going to be play great defense and run the ball and pass when you need to. They're not going to be a prolific passing offense, so they're going to have good defense. And Rodgers really didn't like to get blitzed last year. He did not play well. If you go back to the Denver game last year, Minnesota game, they blitzed them, and it hurt them. So I would expect Aaron Glenn and the defense coordinator, Steve Wilks, to throw a lot of defenders at him and blitz a lot and see if they can rattle him that way. And I think we're going to learn a little bit about the Jets' defense tomorrow and how good they can be.
Well, I think it's a good point. When I know, Brian, you'll recall this, when Rodgers was having his great years with Green Bay, one of the great things he did when he was rushed would be to escape the pocket.
Yeah.
And on the run, he would throw these unbelievable passes in, as they say, tight windows. But even on the run, he could throw that. Well, last year, he couldn't run.
Yeah, and, age is undefeated, right? Father Time's undefeated. And at 41 years old, he's not moving as well as he was when he was 31 or even 35. And we all can relate, those of us who are north of 40 years old, and what it starts feeling like. So, yeah, that was definitely an issue last year. I think his arm is as good as it's ever been. Like, I think he can, he flicks the ball it's just a flick of the wrist and the ball goes a mile. He can't elude the defenders like you're referencing and kind of just create more time. And I think he knows that. So I think he's trying to get rid of the ball quickly. That leads to, there's not much downfield. There's not a lot of downfield passing. Yeah, he's a different quarterback for sure now than he was even, 5 years ago when he was winning MVPs in Green Bay.
Well, I certainly agree with you. I figure the Jets are going to blitz him silly, and I figure that Pittsburgh will throw a lot of short passes. I'm guessing. And we'll see. Yeah.
And I'm curious how much they run. John, look, one of the Jets' Achilles heels last year was their run defense. They did not play run defense well, and people listening might remember the first game, right, against San Francisco on that Monday night. Christian McCaffrey is out. We learned about that right before the game, and everyone was like, oh, boy, the 49ers on McCaffrey. They had this guy Jordan Mason come out, and he ran all over the Jets. So we'll see. I mean, the Steelers might just try to run the ball a lot on the Jets and test out if their run defense is any better than it was last year.
Brian, let's go to the other quarterback, the first year for Justin Fields. I mentioned this on I forget to who, but one year he was starting for Chicago, and a broadcaster that I have great respect for said Fields has not only great legs, he has a great arm. He can throw the ball down the field. Of course, that doesn't mean he'd be accurate. Give us some thoughts on Fields.
Yeah, he does have a strong arm, John. The question with Fields is sort of the processing, how quickly he processes. Sometimes he holds onto the ball too long, and that leads to sacks. He was sacked quite a bit in Chicago. And accuracy, you referenced. He had one practice they did a joint practice with the Giants a few weeks ago, and he was spraying the ball all over the field. He really did not have control. Other times he looked better, but his running ability is different. He's like a running back there. So I'm curious to see how the Jets utilize him in that area. That's not something you do in the preseason. You don't show that in the preseason. Right. You don't want to risk him getting hurt in the preseason. So, I know people were reacting, to all these preseason games, but they're not really running their offense. So it's hard to know exactly what to think of those. So I'm curious how much they have design runs for him, run pass option plays, that kind of thing. I think that could be the bread and butter of this offense if they get it going. And when he runs, it's pretty remarkable to watch. And he had over 1,000 yards 1 year in Chicago. The Jets have never really had a quarterback like this. They had Michael Vick at the end of his career. They had Geno Smith early in his career who can run a little bit, but no one like this. He's a weapon back there as a runner. The question is going to be, what he can be as a passer, and we'll see. Has it worked? Didn't work, in Chicago, and then in Pittsburgh last year. It was pretty good through 6 games, but not good enough for them not to turn to Russell Wilson when he's healthy. So I think, the Fields question is going to be huge for this season, and can they figure out, can he be the guy going forward in 2026?
Well, I kind of agree with you. I think they'll run a lot of RPOs because you also, in the run pass option, you might be able to hit very short passes to someone who's off some wing. Yep. And I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about, but that's about what I think that the Jets will do. I've heard, as you have, Brian, I'm older than you, so I've heard it longer than you. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to play great defense. We're going to run the ball. We're going to run the clock. We're going to keep the ball away, that kind of thing. But at some point, when you're behind,
yes,
then you have to throw the ball.
Yeah, it sounds great. When you say it in August and you say, going into the season, it sounds great, but you're right. And if you've watched Jets games, they're behind a lot. There hasn't been many games where the Jets are ahead to start a game. Like, it's kind of been a theme for the last 10 years of the Jets struggling in the first quarter and being down and having to come back. And it's tough to do. It's tough to run the ball if you're down 14 points in the third quarter. Like, you've got to be able to have quick striking offense in the NFL. You can't rely on 11 and 12 play drives. You can't live like that. You can do that a few times, but if that's the only way you can score, you're going to be in trouble. So I'm curious to see what the big play ability is of this offense, because we haven't really seen it in training camp much. They don't have a tremendous deep threat. They have Arian Smith is a 4th-round pick out of Georgia who's got tremendous speed, but he's very raw, and he's a 4th-round pick. So I'm not sure how much the coaches trust him yet. But other than that, they don't have a lot of guys who can stretch the field. So it's going to be interesting to see where the big plays come from.
On the national scene, like me, you watch every game. I mean, it's your business. You have to. Were you slightly impressed with Dallas that they weren't blown away by Philadelphia?
I was. I thought they looked good. And I thought, Brian Schottenheimer is a guy who was the Jets offensive coordinator from 2006 to 2011. So I got to know him a little bit back then. And he was a hot coaching candidate at that time, John. He had some head coaching interviews in Buffalo and Jacksonville at the time. And then he sort of fell out of favor. And I didn't think he'd ever be a head coach. So it's interesting to see him get a chance. And I thought he had them ready to play. I thought they played really well against the teams that just won the trophy a few months ago. And I thought offensively they did a lot of good things. And, they just made a few mistakes. They made too many mistakes in the game. But I was impressed with Dallas. And, I thought Schottenheimer, who people questioned when the Cowboys hired him, I thought he had this team ready to play on Thursday night.
It's funny. I did a thing before you were on about the hype. And I guess I believe the hype because I thought that Dallas was really in trouble. Everyone hated the move that Jerry Jones made, and they were going to get killed, and they didn't. So, but of course, it's one game. I mean, that's. I'll ask.
Yeah. I mean, look, they're a better team with Micah Parsons on it. There's no doubt about that. But it's one game, so we'll see over time how much they miss Micah Parsons. I think they will quite a bit. The Eagles are a more run-heavy team. We talked about the Jets. I think the Eagles are the model for the Jets, right? If you can run an offense like that, you can win a lot of games. So can Justin Fields be as good as just Jalen Hurts? Can Breece Hall be Saquon Barkley? Can that offensive line block like the Eagles' offensive line? That's a lot to ask. But, I don't think they missed Micah as much in that game because the Eagles are so run-heavy. It's going to be interesting when they play a team that sits back and wants to drop back and throw 40 passes in a game, what happens in that kind of game.
Sounds like my kind of game. I love, in all sports, I love offense. And, I want to see my quarterback throw the ball 40 or 50 times a game. So, one final question, a very tough question, but I think people listening would love to hear your thoughts. Do the Jets and the Giants have any chance to make the playoffs this year?
I think slim. I mean, the Giants' schedule is brutal, John. Like they have a really tough schedule, so I can't see that for them. And the Jets have an easier schedule. I just think the AFC is tough. I think the AFC, if you're looking at it, you're kind of expecting two teams to come out of the West, right? You're expecting two teams to come out of the North, and then you're trying to figure out where the other team comes from. So I just think the AFC is going to be tough, and I think the Jets. This is kind of a reset year with them, with Aaron Glenn. I think they'll be. I predicted 8-9 for them, so I think they'll win a fair share of games. And if they win 8 games, Sean, that's the most games the Jets have won since 2015.
Wow,
so that'd be a pretty good season. But I think they'll fall short of the playoffs. I just, like I said, I think the competition in the AFC. If you're going through the AFC West and the AFC North are no jokes, and there's going to be a lot of playoff teams from that. And then within their own division, the New England. It's probably going to be improved this year. I don't know what to expect really from Miami. I expect Buffalo to win the division. But, Miami and New England are kind of questions. So I just think it's going to be tough for them. But look, what's fun about the NFL is, more in all sports really, but the NFL is pretty much wide open a lot of times for these teams to go through. Every year there's a team that comes out of nowhere and was bad the year before and is all of a sudden good. And, so maybe the Jets can do that one of these years, but I think they'll fall short.
I think that's pretty accurate because the AFC, it's cyclical. It happens in all sports, but there's no question the AFC is so much stronger than the NFC and so many terrific teams and terrific quarterbacks in the AFC. Brian, the season is just beginning. We have to do this again. You're a great guest, as I knew you would be. And thank you, and let's put it this way. We're going to call on you again.
All right. Thanks for having me, John. Anytime.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. That was Brian Costello of the New York Post, and you'll read him after Sunday's game, and he will tell you everything. He and his compatriot, Paul Schwartz, who writes the beat writer on the Giants for the Post, and they're both so great. I love reading them all the time. Well, we have another big-time football guest coming up in just a moment. You know what I didn't do, though, Jonah? Jonah knows. So that was the 77 WABC ActionCarting.com phone line, New York City's premier waste and recycling provider. We're going to drop out a couple of mentions from our sponsors, and then we'll be back right here at 77 WABC. I'm always racing to get off the air on time. Now, our second guest, and she is a member of the NFL TV network. You see her every single day. Oh, does she work? And it's her second time on the show, and you know why? Because I loved the first time so much. Here is Judy Battista. Hello, Judy. How are you?
Hi, John. Thanks for having me back.
Well, you're so good. That's why. Yeah, I've been very lucky. I've had all these guests on. I was just kidding with the engineer and producer inside. I don't have to do a whole lot. They know their subject and they talk, and I love it. Well, Judy, I just did a lot with Brian Costello on the Jets, so we're going to have to do a little bit on the Giants.
Okay.
Who probably have a very tough year. First of all, their schedule at the beginning is murder, and their team was like 3-14, I think, last year. So they have a ways to go. Some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they are going to be an improved team, and I am not sure it's going to be reflected fully in the record because the schedule, as you said, is just brutal. Especially the first half of it is just brutal. And they don't even have a bye week until like week 14, so there's not even a natural break in there. So the schedule is very tough. I do think they are a better team. I think they're going to have better quarterback play than they had last year. I think they've got more talent on the roster. Abdul Carter, the first-round draft pick, was blowing up practice every day, so I can't wait to watch him on the field. And I think Russell Wilson is like a stabilizing influence, not just playing quarterback, but I think in that locker room, he's, very positive, very high energy. And, I was out at the Giants a few times during their training camp, and people in the organization said, this team needed that. Like, they needed somebody who's positive and lifts his teammates up. But again, the schedule is really tough. And so even though they're better, I think, the record might not be great.
Well, I think Wilson, another thing you didn't mention, here now they have a quarterback who's really found success. He should have won 2 Super Bowls in a row. So I could see why people would be attracted to Wilson and his message because, Daniel Jones, I'm sure, is a good guy. He's going to start for Indianapolis this year, but he didn't have that same kind of background, let's say, that Russell Wilson has.
He doesn't have the credentials, right? I mean, Russell Wilson came here with the credentials, and you can't argue with that. He won a Super Bowl. So I think that goes a long way with a team that really needed leadership, and I do think he has filled that void.
Well, I'm a little mystified. I hope you can help demystify me. Why are they making such a fuss over who is ranked as the number 2 quarterback? Apparently, it's Jackson Dart, although Dable won't say that. But I don't think any team is going to go to school on, he's the number 2 quarterback. We got to change things. So they are, I think, acting a little funny on that.
Well, I think when we came into the summer, the question was, could Jackson Dart supplant Jameis Winston and be the backup? If you're the backup, you're literally one play away, and you're next in line if there's an injury, and you're also next in line if there's a performance problem. And again, the schedule is really tough. So, if they struggle through the opening month or so of the season, you could imagine a scenario where they make a change. Now, Jackson Dart was tremendous during training camp and tremendous during preseason. They were very encouraged about everything he did. He relates really well to everybody in the locker room. He makes really quick decisions. He was, absorbing all this information and dealing with it well. And everybody just said, none of this was too big for him, right? He just has the right presence, the right bearing. He's got moxie. That was a word they used a lot. So I think they love Jackson Dart. They're really high on Jackson Dart. Their plan all along has been they wanted Russell Wilson to be the starter so that Jackson Dart could sit and learn without the pressure of having to play. But the reality is, if you make him the number 2 quarterback, that is a signal that you think he has come along really fast and that you would be comfortable with him playing in a game if that's what it comes to.
Well, Judy, you know this. If the Giants falter slightly, there's going to be the old quarterback controversy.
Sure.
And,
yes.
In New York, they've been waiting so long for the Giants. Believe me, I've been a Giant fan since I was a boy. But, there's going to be that controversy. And coaches, I thought Dable did a great thing by saying Wilson's my number one quarterback. He said this months ago, so there wouldn't be the beginning of a quarterback controversy.
Right.
But you know, if they lose a couple of games, there will be.
Right. I mean, they said on the day they drafted Jackson Dart, Russell Wilson is the starting quarterback. So they wanted to cut off any question about could the rookie win the job in training camp, which they did. They've effectively done that. But you're right. If things are not good out of the gate, or certainly after a few weeks, or if Russell Wilson is struggling, let's put it that way, they could lose games and Russell Wilson could still be playing fine because they are facing a very tough schedule. But if Russell Wilson is struggling and the offense is struggling, there's no question that the calls are going to come for Jackson Dart, and that's going to test their patience. I mean, they have been consistent saying they want Jackson Dart to sit, but again, once they made him the backup quarterback, they know what that means, and that is a signal that you're okay with him going on the field, whether it's because of injury or performance, that you can go with Jackson Dart. So it's definitely going to be a test for them if things are rocky out of the gate, how long they wait.
Well, you're right in everything you say. Wilson could be playing well. They still could be losing games. And, you know, there are a segment of fans who will say, Dart, we want Dart. You know, as they always say, you know, the most popular player, he's the second string quarterback.
Right.
You know,
and the other thing is, as I was saying before, the bye week is not until very late in the season. Like usually if you're thinking about a quarterback change, you look for the bye week to do it, gives them a little extra time. I mean, the bye week is like week 14, so forget about that. If they're going to make a change, presumably it would be before then. If they're struggling, obviously the hope, when you ask anybody at the Giants, the hope is that Russell is playing well and they're winning games and you don't even think about a quarterback controversy.
Well, that's without question, Judy, you're right. If they're winning games, you won't hear this. If they lose games, which they might just because they're playing one good team after another. And now, Judy, please stay right there. I mean right there, because we have to break apart the station, sell a couple of things, and then we'll get back with Judy Battista of the NFL Television Network in just a couple of moments here at 77 WABC. Well, Judy, we'll get on to other teams in this exciting league. I don't know when you became a football fan. Were you a little girl?
I was. Yeah. I grew up in South Florida, and there were no other pro teams at that time. There were no Marlins, certainly no hockey, no Heat. So it was the Dolphins, and the Dolphins were great then. Shula was the coach, so that was a good time to grow up and be a football fan. You know,
I was in Baltimore at a very early age, and I met everyone. I had a talk show, and I got to meet everyone, and as a result, I got to be very friendly with Don Shula. And when Shula went to Miami, he took over the town. I mean, he became. Oh, yes. Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
He became the number one citizen there.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely, and remained that way. But it was a great time to become a football fan. That's for sure.
Absolutely, and as you said, there were no other pro teams there. You know, people. My two sons are both ardent Jets fans, and as I tell people, well, when I was growing up, there were no Jets.
Right.
There were six hockey teams, so you know now I think there's 32, so they have grown a little bit. The Giants play Washington first. I think we all were surprised at how good Washington was last year after so many years of being terrible, and how good their quarterback, Jaden Daniels, was. Do you expect them to be better this year?
I expect them to be pretty good this year. I don't know if they will be better. They rebuilt the offensive line. I think the big question for them is, did they do enough to improve the defense? Because the defense, if there's a weakness on that team, it was the defense. And I think that's the question mark that is out there. I have no questions about Jaden Daniels. He is tremendous.
Smooth as silk, isn't he?
Smooth as could be, and they were so far ahead of schedule last year, right? I mean, just way ahead of schedule. They got him Deebo Samuel. Terry McLaurin, they finally got the contract done, so he's in there finally. So I don't have any real questions about the offense. I wonder how good the defense will be. And look, they're in the NFC East. They face a difficult schedule as well. So I'm curious about that. And the other thing now is, for so many years they were the down team and nobody really paid attention to them. Now they are going to have a target on their backs because they are the rising team. They've got a star as a quarterback. Teams will pay attention to them now in a way that I think last year they were able to catch teams by surprise. They also won a lot of games last year in the last minute with comebacks. There were a lot of tight games. And, the law of averages sort of suggests that you can't keep going like that, right? If that's going to balance out. If you won a lot of those in one year, you're not going to win a ton of those the next year. So we'll see if they are on firmer ground and it's not such a surprise and they can't, they're not going to catch teams by surprise anymore. So I'm curious to see how they handle being the favored team and being the team that other teams are gunning for.
Well, I think you make a good point. And, of course, I have seen this in all the sports I've broadcast. If you win a bunch of games, on the last shot or whatever, it happens that you then start losing a lot of games by the last shot. You talked about Washington. Let me ask you about Cincinnati, because that is a team that has a terrific offense. I'm a great fan of Joe Burrows and a very, very poor defense. Do you think they've improved any?
Well, I think the offense is going to come out firing. They changed the way they approach the offseason and the preseason completely in an attempt to not have a slow start, which they have had the entire time Zach Taylor has been the head coach there. And that has torpedoed them season after season. So they changed everything. They played a lot in the preseason. Joe Burrow played a lot. Jamar Chase played a lot. They played. And they looked great. I mean, Joe Burrow looked great from the second he stepped onto the field. He's totally healthy, which he hasn't had a fully healthy offseason in a few years. So he has talked about how he feels better than ever, and he thinks he's throwing the ball better than ever, which obviously is a scary proposition considering how well he was throwing it last year. So I think the offense is going to be dynamite, and I think it will be dynamite right out of the gate. The defense, as you said, was terrible last year and has not looked good in the preseason, but they have not shown anything in the preseason. They were very vanilla. They did not do anything to give away how they're going to play. But again, this is an example of what kind of changes did they make? Did they make enough changes? They changed the defensive coordinator. They drafted a pass rusher, Shamar Stewart, who came into camp late because of a contract dispute. Trey Hendrickson came into camp late because of a contract dispute. Now, Trey Hendrickson is a veteran, and he certainly knows how to take care of himself, and he knows how to get ready. But you have to wonder what you're going to get from both of them, that they were not in camp the whole time. They were not participating in the off-season program the whole time. Are they going to be in peak form right away? And, of course, a rookie, you just have no idea what you're getting from. So I think that, there's no question the defense is what you're worried about with Cincinnati, because if they go the way that Joe Burrow goes, they're going to the Super Bowl, because he is, if they had won a few more games last year, if the defense had been a little bit better and they had won a few more games last year, he would have been the MVP of the league. He was that good last year.
Right.
He was that good, yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, they opened up against Cleveland, and I don't think Cleveland's going anywhere this year, but their quarterback situation is a good person to ask, Judy Batista. Now, they've named Joe Flacco the number one. He has no chance to remain as number one. Just like me, he's getting older. And he can't move at all. So where the defense knows where he's going to be. Now the question is, who would be the number two? They drafted two quarterbacks, one in the third round, Dylan Gabriel, and one in the fifth round, Shadur Sanders. That's kind of a thorny question, isn't it?
It is a thorny question, although I think it got some clarity in the third preseason game. That whole quarterback competition they set up, there were four quarterbacks there. Don't forget they had Kenny Pickett. There were four quarterbacks there. They wanted to have this full competition, Kenny Pickett versus Joe Flacco, and then the two rookies. and it blew up because nobody could stay healthy except for Joe Flacco, the 40-year-old. Kenny Pickett had a hamstring injury that basically just knocked him out completely out of training camp, and then each of the rookies got injured. But I do think in the third preseason game, the rookies played a lot, and Dylan Gabriel was well ahead of Shedeur Sanders in running the offense. He looked confident running the offense. He was totally in control. He was moving the ball, and Shedeur had a poor outing that day. So going into the season, Dylan Gabriel is the number 2 quarterback. Now, definitely they want Joe Flacco to play for a while because they need to develop both of the rookies. So they want to have time to develop both of the rookies before they get them on the field. But the Cleveland Browns have 2 first-round draft picks next year. So they will be in position to draft a quarterback high if they want to. So at some point this season, they're going to want to see what they've got in those rookies, right? They're going to want to see, could Dylan Gabriel possibly be the guy going forward? Could Shedeur be the guy going forward? He's further behind. But at some point, they're going to need to get answers to that because they are certainly going to be able to draft a quarterback if they want to use those 2 draft picks to get way up in the draft. And the coming draft class is expected to be stronger at quarterback than the previous draft class was. So there's going to be a timing issue for Cleveland that at some point they're going to have to get those rookies on the field just to assess what they've got.
Well, I love the fact that you know that they have 2 number 1s. I never involved myself in that, but I will tell you this. New Orleans is going to be a very poor team this year, and they have a quarterback, Spencer Rattler, who did not look very good last year. How do you pronounce the name? Is it Taylor Shock?
Tyler Shock. Tyler Shock, yes.
So they have, and anyway, what this article was that I read, that Manning, Arch Manning, can come out next year, and I think New Orleans is already thinking, Archie Manning played for New Orleans, lives in New Orleans, and it sounds too good to be true, but it's interesting. I heard, too, that the quarterback class next year is going to be very good. So Cleveland, if they don't get a quarterback this year, can go back to the draft next year.
Yes. First of all, it's not clear that Arch Manning is going to come out this year.
Oh, no, I know.
Yeah, so we don't really know what Arch is going to do, and, the early results of his season have been a little bit mixed. So we'll see, but New Orleans is going to struggle this year. There's no question. And to the question of Cleveland, I mean, they're probably going to struggle too. But at least they've got those 2 rookies that offer some intrigue. Like you're going to at least see Dylan Gabriel on the field at some point this year. Almost no question about that.
Oh, absolutely. Judy, were you pleasantly surprised by how well Dallas played against Philadelphia?
I was. Yes, I was. The offense looked
Me too.
I mean, Dak looked fantastic. Dak was great. It did make me think, like, man, if you were going to be this good, wouldn't you like to have Micah Parsons? The offense looks really, really good. You probably could have used Micah Parsons this year. I thought they looked great. I mean, look, they weren't really stopping the run, which was what Jerry Jones kept saying they needed to do. They need to stop the run. Sure. I mean, nobody's really stopping Jalen Hurts or Saquon for that matter. But I was pleasantly surprised by how they looked. They came out, and I'm sure for the players who were there, when they traded Michael Parsons, I mean, obviously the feeling was like this is a step back for the Cowboys. And those guys have a lot of professional pride, right? I mean, Dak Prescott does not want to hear that his franchise just took a step back. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes. I mean, obviously they were playing the defending champion, and they played them very, very close on the road. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. But I was relieved to see that the floor did not drop out from under them.
Well, I felt that way too, and I kind of kidded myself. Like, I believed the hype that Dallas was going to be so bad. I read one. Not that this means anything. One prediction where they predicted Dallas 4th behind the Giants. Anyway, I was shocked. Not shocked, but hey, they're playing pretty good. Hey, they're playing. Yeah. So that's what I thought about Dallas. Now, of course, that Kansas City got knocked off.
Mm-hmm.
last night. I love quarterbacks. So I like the Chargers because I think Herbert has one of the great arms that you've seen. But I wondered about Kansas City. Are we seeing a sign of some slippage?
Well, I think when your top two wide receivers are out, and one of them gets lost, a few plays into the game. I mean, that is a bad situation for an offense. Xavier Worthy is the guy who was supposed to take a lot of what Rashee Rice does while Rashee Rice is suspended for 6 games,
right,
for the first 6 games of the season. That was supposed to be the Xavier Worthy role. They wanted to be more explosive with the offense, and Xavier Worthy is really, really fast. And, of course, then he and Travis Kelce collide. He got the worst of that, naturally. And we still don't know what the severity is. We don't know how long it's going to be. That's bad. That's rough for their offense. Now, we saw this happen last year where the offense was not pretty. They sort of had to patch it together during there were a lot of injuries. So they can adjust. It might not be pretty. The defense didn't look particularly good. Like Chris Jones did not have a great game, the pass rusher. So the defense has to get a lot better. But I trust that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes will go into the laboratory and figure something out how to piece it together while Xavier Worthy is injured and while Rashee Rice is suspended.
Yeah, I agree. They have so much veteran talent that they probably will wind up being a pretty good team. And Judy, it's always a pleasure to have you on the air. I plan to have you on the air so much you should get paid. Well, wait a minute now. Anyway, I know you'll be at the Meadowlands on Sunday watching Aaron Rodgers and all, so have a good time. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on the NFL TV, on the Insiders on Monday. And thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, John.
My pleasure. Anytime, as they say, anytime. We have to get going, don't we? You playing the music? You are playing the music. Good. My thanks to Jonas Jackson, Vincent Los Pinuso, and Rich Rattabali. I'll see you next Saturday from 4 to 5 here at 77 WABC.